Oh yeah, Condo, your message will work perfect. That how everyone will get to. That's perfect.
I'll get a little bit of like bossa nova or something playing here. Let's see.
Okay.
Bossa nova or something playing here.
Yeah, it looks like the music is still pretty quiet. I've got it playing as well.
Okay, let me fix that real quick. Sort of sounds like the Nintendo Wii Shop channel right now.
It's a good description.
Yeah, I think we're getting some feedback too, so I'm gonna nip that out. Okay, let me fix that real quick. Sort of sounds like the Nintendo Wii Shop channel right now.
Good description.
too, so I'm gonna.
I think it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds definitely better.
Cool. Yeah, I think I had a hidden audio track there for a sec. So yeah, I guess should we just hop into the video?
Yeah, let's get started on the video and
Yeah.
Let people trickle in. Okay.
yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
And I'll go ahead and we'll start the video, and I'll go ahead and just do introductions afterwards.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
Kick things off pretty quickly here. So one of the things that you've seen across the conference so far is a real focus on the next
You might want to mute
wave
the audio
of
for the
innovation
YouTube. I
that's
think
getting
there is
built
still
on
some feedback
blockchain.
coming
So
delayed,
what does
like
this
10
mean, right?
seconds later.
You kick things off pretty quickly here. So one of the things that you've seen across the conference so far is a real focus on the next
You might want to mute the
wave
audio
of
for the
innovation
YouTube. I
that's
think
getting
there is
built
still
on
some
blockchain.
feedback coming
So what
delayed,
does
like
this
10
mean, right?
seconds later.
Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 sec.
Start off with tokens as value. You move into things like smart contracts enabling DeFi. And then there's a whole service and interoperability built around that. And the expansion now is moving into totally new areas. You saw the Alexis and 776 announcement yesterday that they're putting a bunch of effort into social tokens and social projects being built on Solana and other blockchains. And a whole other area of that, too, is, of course, gaming. So the render announcement yesterday that they're bringing their engine and their smart contract system to Solana as well. I personally am very excited about that. I think there's huge hopes for what their technology and what they've built, and being able to integrate that into this new world of gaming. And the intersection of gaming and blockchain is really interesting, because if you think about it, these models that have existed for a long time about in-game currency was a blockchain without a blockchain, right? It was peer-to-peer trading of items. If you roll back all the way to the days where people were trading World of Warcraft gold on eBay, right? Like all of the framework for this was written in this sort of transition from Web 1 to Web 2. But with the advent of Web 3, we're now finally seeing a truly peer-to-peer marketplace for this sort of stuff developing and building out. So we're going to start off today with permissionless fun and the future of gaming, moderated by Colleen.
Testing. All right, there we go. Thanks, Austin, for the great intro. I think before we dive into it, we can have our panel just very quickly introduce themselves if we want to go down the line.
Yeah, sure. Amy Wu, partner at Lightspeed, and I lead our crypto and gaming investing. We just announced a $100 million fund along with FTX and Solana.
My name is Alex Paley, co-founder and CEO of Faraway, and Amy just led our Series A along with Colleen and Solana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Liu, the technical lead with Star Atlas, and been working in crypto DeFi space for 5-6 years now, project to project, and this is my most favorite one yet.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So to set the groundwork a little bit, Amy, I guess maybe this is a question for you. How do we think about what's different about Web3 games versus traditional Web2 games?
So how I think about it is, first and foremost, in terms of the shift from Web 2 to Web 3 gaming, starts with an ideological one. And we're basically moving from Web 2 centralized profit making to a Web 3 more decentralized profit sharing between creators, and users. And this is a really important shift that, game publishers and companies in Web 2 need to really understand. And so when we talk about Web 3 gaming, it involves various use cases of blockchain in gaming. And so I think we're starting to see some of these use cases come out, like, for example, using NFTs as a pre-launch user acquisition and community building drive, and then also tokenized currencies, and the thing is that these concepts in terms of digital assets and also in-game currencies has been concepts that have been around for decades in the gaming world. And so it's such a natural extension of that to actually incorporate blockchain tech. And I think some of the things that you can do is you can deepen game economies, you can increase velocity of transactions in these games, and also introduce a lot of different strategies you can incorporate in terms of different segments of your gamers as well. And the thing is that these concepts in terms of digital
I was going to say, I think it's also the difference between an open economy and a closed economy. Right, in a free-to-play game, the economy is created and live operated by either the GM of that game, the game designers, or the live ops managers. And in a Web3 economy, it's open by definition and intrinsically, right? Because peer-to-peer trading is automatically enabled. And in a free-to-play type of game design, you would think that if you enabled peer-to-peer trading, that would be an insane decision. Right? It would be very, very controversial because it typically breaks a lot of the free-to-play game loops that you'd see in most free-to-play games today. So I think it really, like Amy said, deepens the economies and makes things a lot more open. In a Web3 economy,
awesome. So actually, double-clicking on that a little bit, what's different? What kind of game loops can we now create that we couldn't before? And I guess that's a question for both Alex and Michael, since you guys are thinking pretty deeply about that.
Peer-to-peer trading, that would be an insane decision. Go ahead. It would be very, very
so the question was, what can we do differently now than we could before?
Free-to-play game loops.
Yeah, the realism of the transfers and the transactions to the user, and capturing that dream for your typical gamer. Because when you think about it, in the gaming space, traditionally, you have this experience, and you're crafting something for a user, regardless of the genre of the game. And now it not only becomes something that's a pastime, but it could be a full-time as well. And it's really interesting how with DeFi integrations into gaming, this becomes someone's career as opposed to somebody's hobby. For your typical gamer. Because when you think about
it's pretty interesting because if you look at any MMO, right, you kill a monster, you get gold. Now all of a sudden that gold is freely tradable in an open market. So, like Michael was saying, that opens up a lot of DeFi applications, and it opens up a lot of more social interactions between our players, right? They no longer, all of the currency they own is now freely tradable, right? They can do anything they want with it. And I think that just, like I was saying before, just makes these economies much more interesting and much more similar to IRL. You kill a monster, you get gold.
Yeah, so
Now all of a sudden that gold.
you guys touched on a big thing, which is now there's money involved. Like I, as a player, can earn these in-game assets, and I can also sell them. How do you think that changes the psychology of gaming for Web3 gaming? Because now it's not just purely fun. Now there's money that I might make.
Yeah, there's money involved, and I think people will play these games in many different types of ways, right? It's like we're making a shooter, but just like you've seen in EVE Online, some of the best players in EVE don't even log into the game. They're playing this game in a way that the game developers never even predicted, right? So for us, peer-to-peer trading is enabled, and now a person might never play the shooter that we made. They might say, we are going to be the masters of the peer-to-peer marketplace, and we are going to create all of these interesting DeFi applications on top of that. So I think it's like, the realm of possible players is going to be greatly expanded past what you'd consider like a typical gamer in like a free-to-play game.
I think about it as some people actually equate blockchain gaming with play to earn, but actually it's the first, I think, iteration of what this actually looks like. I believe that play and earn is a lot bigger actually. So play to earn is essentially
players getting involved on a much more real level and investing themselves further than in any gaming space before.
Totally, yeah. I recently learned that in EVE, I guess there were corporations that actually had like their own HR departments. And so I guess there's some precedent for this even in Web 2, but I think Web 3 will just kind of blow the top
Floodgates
off.
are open.
Yeah, actually, like EVE Online is a great example of that, where it's like an OG guilds, right? And like digital economy metaverse, there are like thousands of corporations, and some of the largest of these corporations are 10,000 players strong, and they have roles, responsibilities. There's like a warlord at the top of that, CEO of that. These are real life experiences that actually these players, and EVE Online is like 15 years old. So imagine how much more real that becomes when you have this tokenized economies. You can have these corporations or guilds that actually maybe fractionalize and, like, I don't know, sell their own equity type of thing, and another guild can actually help fund like their first like pool of ships that they're building. I think it just opens up so much more possibility when it
and the game logic executing on the server side. What I think is going to continue to evolve is we're going to see game mechanics transfer over to the smart contract layer on the blockchain. And the reason for this is that we're working with people's assets here. And as a user, security and trust in the workings of the game, I think, are paramount. And if you can have game mechanics through this layer on the blockchain actually working together across ecosystems even, then the value add to the user is immense. It adds that security, that trust, game mechanics transfer will grow the ecosystem as a whole. Smart contract layer on the blockchain.
I think about your question in terms of interoperability of in-game items, right? And so I think that you typically don't see that right now in Web2 games, and the reason is pretty simple. It doesn't benefit the game publisher. You know, if you're a game publisher, you have a game with 100 million players. Why would you let another game studio actually be able to use a very popular item in your own game? First and foremost. But, and that's separate from, interoperability is great for the player. Basically, you buy the item once, and maybe you can use it a few different other ways and get a lot more value out of the item. The question is just on the other side. What's the incentive for the game studio to actually allow interoperability? And then you get into practical considerations. Game studios are building games on different gaming engines. So how does that work when one is on Unreal and the other is on Unity? Then there's okay, well, it's one thing to imagine if you bought a skin, then maybe you can use, I don't know, a hat or something, in your avatar, use it on another game in your avatar there. But if the game actually has, if the in-game item has power, how does that translate to another game? And so I think there are a lot of real-world implications of interoperability that are just remains to be seen. But I think it will definitely take a studio that wants to really experiment with that, and potentially we'll see it first with a gaming publisher that is allowing interoperability between a few games in their ecosystem before we'll see it between studios.
Yeah, totally. I guess it's basically there's a financial incentives piece of why do I care if why I have no incentive to let other games interoperate with my assets, and then there's a logistical and mechanical challenge to this.
A blockchain gaming founder, I asked him this question and once told me, why would I let another game developer vampire attack my own game? So I do think there's, I'm very interested in seeing the first, execution of interoperability.
Totally. Okay, so I want to switch tracks again a little bit to the user experience or the gamer experience, right? Because I think one of the consistent pieces of feedback that people give about Web3, whether they're gamers or otherwise, is that it's an awful first-time user experience. I have to go get KYC'd in exchange, get some coins, put them on a wallet. I now have to custody that wallet and make sure I don't lose the seed phrase, et cetera, et cetera. How do you guys think about solving that first-time user experience for gamers, on your games? I guess this is for Michael and Alex.
Sure. Well, our solution at Star Atlas is through the user experience. So we kind of prioritize that experience over other things and focus on making the experience as native to the gaming industry as they're used to. So you're right, exactly. When you get into crypto, there's a lot of barriers in the way, and there's some knowledge barriers and physical barriers just getting your assets in the first place. So I think any game that's going to be successful on the Solana blockchain needs to solve the user experience and the onboarding ramps for those users through simplifying their interfaces and improving the experience end-to-end, as well as the training and documentation and just knowledge building for the community.
Yeah, so and I guess from how the way that we're approaching it is we're going to be the first end-to-end wallet solution, integrating FTX. So a person is literally going to be able to sign up for our game, create a username, and they'll automatically have an FTX account. And our goal is to just abstract away all of the complexity from the player experience. The player doesn't need to know anything about a seed phrase. All they need to know is their assets are there, they're safe, and they can do whatever they want with them.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, I'm going to probe on this one a little bit more. My hypothesis is that at the start, the vast majority of gamers, especially those that are not crypto native, don't care about self-custody, right? They're perfectly happy with some sort of custodial solution. But the thing I wonder about is, what And so maybe it's like initially it's like 98% of gamers custody, and then there's like some 2% who actually care about this, and you know, not your keys, not your coins kind of attitude. Do you guys have a view on like how quickly or how many people might, you know, go into that self-custody mode? Like, are we going to be in a world in which like everyone self-custodies, or are we always going to live in a world where some people just don't want to engage with it?
I think just like you have, you know, casual players and hardcore players, you're going to have people that are more casual about, you know, self-custodying, saying, I don't care about the complexity, I just care about the fact that my assets are safe in whatever custodial wallet they're in. And then of course there will be, you know, hardcore players who have millions or maybe even, you know, tens of millions of dollars in assets, and they say, you know what, I really want to understand how this works, and I want to, you know, have the knowledge that, you know, I own everything myself, right? So, but I think that will be a small fraction of gamers.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, once you have enough money on the line, you're like, well, maybe I should take better care of it. Okay.
On this onboarding point, I'll just say one thing. I mean, you know, the first time I started playing Axie Infinity, I think it took me 36 hours to actually start playing the game, or like longer than that. And then in terms of just going through the entire journey and trying to get money out of Axie Infinity, it took me a couple of days before it finally settled. And I mean, the fact that, I mean, they're doing over like 10 million of revenue a day right now just speaks to how badly people want to play that. Because because in the Web 2 gaming world, game developers actually think about time to fun in the span of like minutes rather than days. And because people's attention spans are short, like if there's hundreds of options or thousands of options for you to be playing from or choosing from. And so I think we're a long ways to go in terms of just making, I mean, not just gaming, but just actually like DeFi Web3 experiences easier for just your average normal consumer. And I think like people who solve that are just going to are going to be at an advantage.
Totally. Yeah, it didn't take me 36 hours, I think, initially, but it was like 12 for me for Axie. Okay.
I'm technologically inept, so I think that's why it took me so long.
Okay, but so, yeah, clearly there's like this onboarding piece that's a challenge, but I'm curious, I guess Alex and Michael in particular, like from a game builder's perspective, what do you think are the biggest challenges or risks for aspiring or people already building Web3 games in terms of like actually being able to realize their visions? Like what's hard?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you build any game, whether it's a Web3 game or like a Web2 game, it's all about like layering complexity. So you usually have your early life cycle, your mid cycle, and then your end game. And the way that you bring a player through that is you give them something easy to just start getting going on. So for us, we have a shooter built on top of a strategy game. The shooter is meant to be a game mechanic that's just very well understood. Everybody knows how to play a shooter. We're going to bring people through the funnel, through like a very easy to understand shooter, and then we're going to start introducing all of the complexity of the strategy game in like the mid funnel and then the end game. But I think every blockchain game developer today should be very careful about how much complexity they introduce to the player day one, because we do have open economies now. These open economies are extremely complex. There's a million things you can do in these open economies, but you don't want to expose the player to so much complexity on day one that they just like throw up their hands and say, I don't even know what to do, because they will leave your game.
And kind of tapping to that last thought about the economies, it's like when you're building a game and you're kind of a steward of that realm of what you're building for the players, and it's your job kind of to ensure that you're not messing it up for them, right? So you create a $300 million economy for them, and their assumption is they can keep existing in it, you know, playing to earn and having a great time. So there's also, in the crypto gaming space, some awareness that needs to be built towards that, and figuring out really how do you integrate changes in your gameplay safely without disrupting that for the user.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of this is, I mean, I call it also just community-driven game development too, because you're constantly communicating with your players. Like you see all these Discord communities around blockchain gaming, they're extremely collaborative. So if you're going to introduce, you know, changes to your gameplay or to your meta, like you need to surface these changes, like get, you know, get the okay from your players that they understand what's going to happen and they're good with it. And then, yeah, you can make the changes. But unlike in free-to-play, right, where you make the changes with the release of a new update to your app, I think in blockchain gaming, you need to be a lot more communicative with your player base about upcoming changes.
Awesome. Okay, so far, people have tried building Web3 games for a few years now, but we've only really started seeing standout successes pretty recently. And I'm kind of curious, as you look forward, whether it's like 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, Amy, are there any particular themes, whether it's genres of games or something specific that, categories of things that you think will be particularly successful in the near term? Like, is it like, hey, card games are good for NFTs, and so I expect card games to do well. I don't know. Do you think about a genre lens or any sort of specific category that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, there's a number, and I think at a high level, it starts with how big are some of these genres today, right? And then you can go from there. The largest game genre is actually shooter games. And so I actually think some of the first shooter games we're going to see, or some of the first games we'll see dropping NFTs on a mass level are going to be shooters. But I'm not sure that those are necessarily in and of itself going to have the deepest integrations with blockchain. And so some of the genres I'm super excited about are MMO, just because it's the closest to the idea of the metaverse, right? And so moving from a artificial digital currency to tokenized currencies seems like a very natural step, in addition to just launching NFTs, which I think we'll see. We're seeing companies doing that now. We'll see large gaming publishers do that, but I feel like just that in itself doesn't actually explore the full potential of blockchain. And some of the other genres that are interesting, definitely card collectibles, because literally you have collectibles as part of the core gameplay. And then I think Forex games, land strategy games, super interesting because again this concept, the land sale, then becomes organically incorporated into a game as well. And so I think in terms of more mid-core gaming, it's interesting because these are games in which some players get super involved, and you have really deep game economies that blockchain will actually deepen. And also you can do a lot with experimentation around tokenomics in some of these mid-core games. So those are some of the genres that I think about.
Yeah, I think honestly, a lot of these genres, almost any genre, can have a land mechanic or a territory capture, territory control. Even if you consider your land mechanic just your home base that you're decorating, there is always a reason to have a place of permanence that you consider your home, especially as we gravitate more towards this metaverse or virtual world vision.
Totally. Okay. And I think this might be the final question to leave it off, and this is for the entire panel. But what do you guys think are the key factors for success to make a Web3 game going forward?
I can start, and then love to hear from the game makers. For me, what am I looking for right now? Again, we're at the ground floor. Basically, Axie Infinity is pretty much the only mainstream blockchain game that's live right now, and I think that in the near term there is a first mover advantage if you're going to launch your game. I don't mean launch NFTs. I mean actually launch your game, in terms of players playing it, because there's way more people who want to play a blockchain game than there are actually live games out there right now. But if you fast forward, some of the best games take years to build. I think Valorant took 7 years to build. And so once there are hundreds of games out there, then people have choice. And again, I think it's not enough actually to have just play to earn dynamics. You actually need ways to capture and retain players long term. And in the Web 2 world, you see some games have decades of longevity because of these social layers and ways to capture the audience for long periods of time and really build affinity to the game. And so in terms of what we're looking for, I think that in Web3, your ability to build community is absolutely essential. And I've talked about that a lot. However, it's very difficult to build a great game. And so when, as an investor, I always look for game-making experience in the core team. It doesn't need to be, if you're founders, ideally somebody on your team has game design experience. But if you don't, that you have hired somebody onto the team with that experience, because I think it's absolutely essential in terms of building a game, particularly in a more complex genre.
I mean, my answer is sort of simple, that all blockchain games need to remind themselves that they're games, and in order for a game to stay around for 10, 20 years, that game must be social. And I think one of the things that we're seeing in a lot of these play-to-earn games is that sort of two classes of players have emerged. You've had these antisocial, gamers, and basically the antisocial grinders, and then you have antisocial speculators who typically buy an asset and never come back to your game. But games last a long time because the communities that form. So I think sort of like what Amy's saying, like community is extremely important in blockchain gaming, and the game mechanics need to reward, socializing and community building within those games. And in a lot of these blockchain games today, you can be a completely antisocial gamer and still accrue something of on-chain value. But I think in the game that we're designing, at least, we are saying that in order to actually accrue significant value, you need to be part of a clan. You need to do these social activities. And I mean, in any game, like in any long-lasting game, whether it's World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, whatever, or in real life, like the only way to to accrue real value is by working with others or contributing it back to your community.
I like to think of the place we are right now in crypto gaming as kind of like the Flash era of crypto gaming. If you guys remember back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of little 2D interactive games that were flooding the internet and were a lot of fun to play. And where we're moving next is, and the next steps for gaming on the blockchain is high fidelity of fantastic end-to-end user experience and a AAA feel to what you're pushing out. So once we move into that realm where studios are actually creating these immense and immersive experiences already integrated with a blockchain layer, that's going to seal the deal.
So yeah, I believe in social a lot more than I believe in AAA. I think in the past year or 2 years, we've seen a lot of amazing, amazing games that have ascended to the top, whether it's Valheim, Fall Guys, that have had hundreds of millions of users, millions and millions of concurrent users. And they have been successful not because they have the best graphics, but because they have the most social gameplay. And I think that's why games last a long time, because of the bonds that you form with your friend groups. We have people in our games that are only friends with people in the game. Like, they call each other by their nicknames in the game. Like, that's why games last. So it's not going to be AAA experiences. It's going to be social games.
I totally agree. I mean, this is where the average player on Roblox plays for 2.5 hours, which I think is insane.
Yeah.
That there's actually people on average in these top games, whether it's Fortnite or a game on Roblox or League of Legends, actually spend more time there than actually in social networks necessarily. Yep. Then, which is why, I think, although gaming and social are coming together, and we believe at Lightspeed at least that actually the next social networks may be born from games.
Yep.
And so it's 100% agree with you on the social elements of it.
And we're making browser games, which are by definition not high fidelity, but what they are is extremely social. Like, I can send you a link and you can play with me in a matter of seconds. And our goal is to bring billions of players to this new Web3 economy, and you can't do that unless your game is social, has game mechanics, are social, and is extremely shareable.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's not either social or AAA experience. I think the thing that's going to seal the deal and be the game is social and AAA.
Maybe. But I think with Roblox, we have definitely seen that you do not need AAA experiences.
I 100% agree.
To have an amazing, vibrant economy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Some dissent on the panel. I guess my 2 cents on this one is that as a gamer, at least, I'd love to have both, so I can at least use my expensive graphics card for something.
Yeah.
If you can get one.
Yeah, that's true. If I can get one. All right. I know we're at time. I'm going to sneak in one last question, which is, if you had, is there any game that you've played in the past, whether as a kid or whatever, that you really enjoyed and wish someone would make a Web3 version of?
I loved,
for people out there.
I love Diablo, and so I grew up playing that, and I'm looking forward to buying NFT Diablo items if that ever happens.
I mean, my favorite game of all time is Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I'm a big RPG player, so if somebody made a Web3 version of that with an open economy, I probably wouldn't come out of my room for, maybe a year.
I'm in the same boat as you. Action RPGs are where it's at.
Yeah.
I personally like Path of Exile. Diablo's fun too. Yeah, those items where you've got the randomly generated loot. Imagine if something super cool drops. It's an NFT. You can trade it. That's really captures my imagination.
Awesome. For me, it's a Web3 version of Darkest Dungeon, indie game for those of you guys who don't know. But anyway, so for all the game builders out there, there's a couple of multi-million-dollar ideas for you to go pursue. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the time. Thanks, audience, for being out here. I think we'll wrap up now.
Awesome.
I'm good.
All right, just wrapping up the video here. How's it going, guys? That was a long one.
It was.
Yeah,
It was good. It was a good talk, though. I liked it.
Yeah, it was a great talk. They hit on a lot of really good points. I actually took some notes as we were going through.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. So I'll just get us in here and let you guys have at it. But yeah, so sorry again about the audio difficulties before, but we're coming off an exciting week. The Solana Breakpoint conference, it wrapped up back on Wednesday. And so joining us today to talk about that is Sam, aka Dr. Wynn, man who needs no introduction, and our friend Josh Cross from DeFi Now. He's incredibly well versed in the Solana space, and he also has a way nicer looking streaming setup than we do. So we're incredibly excited to have him on as a guest for the stream. So
It's awesome to be here.
yeah, thanks for being here. Let's just jump into it, guys.
Cool. Yeah, I really like, I guess we can kind of start since Sam, you and I messed up. One of the things that Amy Wu was talking about early on was looking at from in the Web2 economy, you have centralized profit making where the company raises money. When the game is done, they release it and then they take in the profits. And now that's kind of been flipped where now they can come up with a good idea, hopefully build some of it and then raise money. And then they come up with a minimum viable product. And then the community that supported them early on can actually benefit and kind of share in those profits.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked that point. One thing that I picked up on too is what I really liked. The gentleman was talking about the social aspect of it. Working together as teams and then also contributing back to the community. Those are going to be the projects that are really going to capture the biggest audiences. 'Cause if you think about it, like when you're playing a game like World of Warcraft, I mean, at least for me, the reason why I like to play was not because of the soloing and the question. It's because I wanted to get on and be able to accomplish something with a team. And that's the reason why everyone else kept showing up, is because we're there and we got to know each other. I mean, those made some, great friends, out of, those are the people that you spend your time with. And that community aspect is what really gives something longevity. Looks like there was some debate over whether you needed to have a AAA experience or not. Obviously the best of both worlds, I think, is if you can have a AAA experience and the social aspect of it, good game mechanics, great economy. I mean, then you've got the whole package.
Right. But I do agree that having these social aspects dialed in well is more important than good graphics. When he's talking about Roblox, that's a very clear example of that. Whereas there have been
Absolutely.
games that have had good graphics, but they completely flopped because they were lacking in other areas.
Right.
But yeah, the other thing I really enjoyed is when they're talking about, you know, the socialization in games, and that, you know, when we're moving into a future where people are going to live more and more in these digital spaces, and even when we're talking about metaverses, where we're getting kind of, the line is getting blurred between, you know, what is a game versus what is, you know, just participating in something. We talked a little bit before the stream started about how, you know, I personally don't like the term play to earn, because it kind of implies that you're just playing the game specifically to earn some money, which that's happened, but then you'll only stay with that as long as you're making money with it. If it's not fun to play, then, you know, you'll immediately jump ship into something else. So having it to where it's fun to play, so you play and earn, is even better. But I did what we were talking about before. I think it's interesting, the concept of like, some of it is more playing, but then some of it's more just like participating and doing tasks related to a project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got to kind of think, you know, if we fast forward into the future, what's really happening here is we're building these metaverses. Each of these gaming companies have a little piece of the metaverse, but someday when there's 3 billion people that are playing games right now for free and or paying and not getting any ownership of assets or earning at all in these games. And what happens when that 3 billion people switches over and is now in this space? That's a huge addressable market. And at that point, there's going to be some commercialization that's going to happen, because you're going to have these huge, vast audiences and connecting points. Maybe Facebook, maybe companies like ours that are actually onboarding connection points to the metaverse. And then from there, you can connect to anywhere you want to go in there. And there's going to be, sure, there'll be actual real games, but there'll be things that are, like you said, more task, you know, oriented, where you're just participating, and by completing tasks within that metaverse or that virtual spaces environment, you're earning still. So yeah, absolutely. That eventually we're going to see those lines start to get blurred more on that.
How do you kind of see it playing out as this dynamic, as we're getting, you know, these 3 billion people that are already playing games into this? Yeah, just kind of like on a broad view, how do you see that playing out?
Like how they're actually going to, you know, get onboarded into these games.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's kind of, yeah, my question.
So yeah, I mean, I see that. So I think it was Amy that mentioned her process took her 36 hours to do, just to get into Axie Infinity. So, you know, she's coming from a not very technical standpoint, and most of these people are, even if they're an avid game player, they might not be super technical still, especially when it comes to blockchain and cryptocurrency and knowing what to do. So I think companies like ours are, you know, and you and I, Josh, you know, we're going to have to do more of this kind of stuff, and there's going to be other people, not just us. We can't evangelize to all of the world. There's going to need to be more people like us, and there's a lot of people out there. Elio Trades is one that you know, we're reaching out to too, that are giving really good information about how to get involved in the space. And then having the communities like, you know, our Discord and your Discord, where people can ask questions and get some help, you know, that they've done it before. Because if they're trying to do it all by themselves, they're going to literally spend probably 36 hours just to get everything set up and going. So I think that that's going to be part of the onboarding process. And I think there's going to be kind of like a split between different types of metaverses, or what people consider the metaverse. There's going to be the type that we're kind of involved in, which is really open community, socializing, teamwork, decentralized, you know, people being able to participate and have ownership of assets. And then there might be some more kind of a mainstream version of it too. That's more along like what Meta, you know, Facebook, now called Meta, is going with too. I think we're going to see those two segments of a split, you know, because they're going to probably make it easy, but it's not going to be super decentralized, where it's still going to be probably easy over here as well on our side of it, as long as people connect into the Discord communities and they're there and open to, you know, watching our streams. And you know, we're going to put out a lot of educational videos. Here's what we're planning to do over the next couple of months. So people that are participating in that, it's going to be easy for them, because we're going to give them step-by-steps on how to get onboarded into these various metaverses very easily. That's kind of the way I see it.
I kind of think that that there's going to be, and I'd like to run this by you too, that as far as the decentralized metaverses go, that eventually it's going to get to the point where we just have one metaverse that everybody can connect to, in the same way that we have one internet. You know, right now it's kind of like having to connect to a different Wi-Fi router every website you go to, and and over time, especially when you're looking at different blockchains. So I'm curious as what do you think as far as we're going to have this decentralized metaverse, but then we also have things like Facebook's Meta. Do you think that they are going to be connected, or were you going to have more of like a decentralized community owned ones, and then we're going to have the centralized, I don't know, the Facebook versions?
That's what I do. Yeah, I do think that the latter there is probably what we're going to see is the Facebook type group and the people that are going to go that direction with it, and then you're going to have NFT2Earn, and maybe if there's any other companies, I don't know that there really is any other company out there like us yet, but there probably will be. There's going to be the companies like ours, and maybe we'll all merge together, and that'll be kind of the two, like you said, main entry points, because you're not going to want to connect to everything individually. You're going to have one central point. You're into the metaverse, and then you're like, hey, where do I want to go? What do I want to do today? I want to play some games. Okay, I'm going to connect to these favorite games over here that I like. But that's after you're already connected into the portal, basically. If you want to do some shopping, you go and do some shopping. You do whatever you need to do, because that's where you're going to be spending, probably 90% of your leisure time is inside a metaverse portal.
Right. Yeah, and then the other thing that really interests me, having a DeFi YouTube channel, is the idea of having, DeFi within games. So having things like being able to earn valuable assets in a game that's an NFT, and then you can rent it to somebody. There was a racing game, I don't remember what it's called, but you can have like really high-end NFT race cars that you rent out to really good race car drivers, and then you take a share of the whatever they earn from the race. Or even just more simple things like using your NFTs as collateral for loans, or staking them and earning passive income on them. That's something that is really interesting to me.
Right, absolutely. And on the DeFi side of it, a lot of these assets are very expensive, and a game like Star Atlas, for someone to participate in that, maybe that barrier to entry might be too high for the average casual gamer. And that's where we can do, when we've talked about doing this, like a Genesis NFT or token that basically is aligned with that particular game, for example, and that gives someone membership access, and all they got to do is buy the token for a lot less than if they go and buy a $5,000 or $20,000-$30,000 ship. But now it gives them access to be able to participate in the missions and the things that collectively 1,000 people basically bought that token, and they all together collectively own that fleet of ships, and now they can participate and earn in the rewards for that particular game that they bought that token for.
Yeah. I think the cheapest ships for Star Atlas, I think, are about $20.
Yeah.
But even that for developing nations could be a pretty high barrier to entry. So you're saying that you're going to have this community that has its own community token, and by owning some of the token, there would be certain times that you can use it, or just when they're available, you'll be able to use them. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really cool idea. How are you planning to, I guess, when you're building this out, how are you deciding which games that you want to implement to be a part of NFT2Earn?
So, basically we've got, we've got exclusive rights, I guess, to say, or exclusive access with certain gaming companies. We'll probably start with those first. Games like Ember Sword, Gloomy City, Unfamiliar Territory. This is a new one that we just made an agreement with, 11 Minutes. So we probably start with the games that we've already have partnerships with, and build out from there. We don't have an actual partnership with Star Atlas yet, but we're going to be probably reaching out to them here soon and doing that. So that would probably be the ones that we would start with. That would be our decision process.
Oh, that's cool. Does anybody in the chat have any questions or anything? 'Cause it'd be cool to see what you guys are thinking on all of this. I know that there's like maybe a 20-second delay of what we're saying and what shows up in the chat, though.
Yep.
I'm gonna go through my notes and see what other things I thought were really interesting. I think it was interesting when he was talking about we're in the flash era of crypto gaming, because I remember when I was back in 2005 or so, I was in high school, and playing all these flash games that are like, you know, now you have these free to play games that you just hop on the internet, and there're just tons of them that these, you know, devs are putting out. It's a really interesting time to consider that we're in right now, especially when you consider where we've come since that era.
Yeah, another thing that I like that I actually had a note on here is, and this really hit home for me, is it's no longer a dream of being, and I think what he meant is being a professional gamer, you know, actually making some money with gaming. It's for me, you know, going back 20 plus years ago, you know, playing World of Warcraft for the first time, or even for that EverQuest, you know, I kind of started to develop that dream. I was like, hey, what if we could be, you know, together as a team? If we have a strong enough team, we can be better than, you know, the rest of the teams out there, and get some sponsorship and all that. If you are, you know, getting world first and out there, you know, down in content that nobody else in the world has been able to do, and you guys do it first and have tutorial videos of how to do it, people are going to watch those videos and your viewership is going to go up, and you can get sponsored if you're that good. The reality is, though, even as a team of really good people, you still have to be in the top tenth of a, you know, 1% basically, which is a very small group. So that dream started to become not so much reality until blockchain gaming, you know, came out, and now we can see that it is actually possible. You don't have to be the best in the world. You can participate as a team, and by, you know, being organized, you can still do well, even individually, like people have proven in Axie Infinity. However, we're actually starting to get together and do a lot more teamwork with Axie Infinity, and putting our heads together and being able to strategize so we can actually rise up the leaderboard on the ranking, or putting together teams of, you know, the best meta out for our best players, and seeing what we can do by putting our heads together. So it's nice that that dream is now becoming a reality.
Yeah, and it's not only just, you know, it's possible, it's going to be what many people do for a living, because, you know,
Yeah.
there's not really any alternative than working in the metaverse as we move,
Right.
you know, further into the future.
Right. Right.
So, yeah. Looks like the sound's still, you guys still having trouble hearing us? I see a lot of people saying up in the chat, but
Yeah, I'm not sure if that mean up with the volume, if that's what
are they just telling us to look up?
I'm not sure. I've seen that was coming even when the audio was good. There was a couple of people still saying up. So
That's okay, I'm sure.
so Giselle says somebody's heard that Peg Axie is going to be played to earn game also. Yeah, I've heard that. I did hear also that Gloomy City is going to be have some play to earn, not only play to earn aspects, but ability for other people to be able to utilize the assets, and like a scholarship or apprenticeship type play. So will Unfamiliar Territory. We'll have that as well. And what other ones are going to have that? Ember Sword is going to have that aspect as well. Is there any others out there though? Because we're always looking. I mean, if you guys have heard of any others, and Peg Axie is a good one. We want to definitely look at that.
I haven't even heard of Peg Axie. Now I'm curious about it.
I don't understand, Roldan, that question that you have about also seeing news that Farmville will be an NFT game.
Oh, like
Right now it's
Farmville, the Facebook game?
Oh, Farmville. Oh, I see what you're saying. Farmville, like the Facebook version of it. Okay. That'd be interesting. Yeah, because if I understand correctly, a lot of the leaders of the Farmville team, the guys that started it, actually went over to Gala Games. So it'd be interesting if whoever remained ownership of that, if they try to make that into an NFT game.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So one of the later questions they were talking about, you know, which normal video game would you love to see turned into one of these games that's on the blockchain? And we're probably a really far ways off from seeing like the Halos and the Call of Duties of the industry moving in that direction. But do you see that happening? And which games would you like to see that happen with?
I think it's pretty inevitable. I think they're, in order to stay competitive, they're going to have to do that, because why would a player choose a game? I mean, other than, unless it's just mind-blowingly fun and there's nothing that you can earn that's also good. I mean, I would choose a game that's pretty fun and I make money over one that's really fun, and I don't. But, you know, that's just me. As far as for me, I don't know. When they were talking about it, I kept thinking of Witcher 3. I love that game, and it would have to be, I guess, but it's just more like an RPG, like a medieval RPG, medieval fantasy RPG would be amazing. But I don't know about CD Projekt Red building it anymore after Cyberpunk. So
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, it'd have to be a game that has teamwork aspect to it, a social aspect where you're working together and going through the content in the game. I mean, a game like World of Warcraft, I think, or like EverQuest, or even further back, Ultima Online. A game like that, that's an MMORPG that the real rewards and the real gameplay begins when you're raiding as a group. I don't know if anybody's played that, but really the real gameplay started when you start, doing those end game raids. That's where the real game is. And you're trying to down a boss for 2 months straight. And I remember times, and this is back when we had, instead of Discord chats, we used Ventrilo servers and TeamSpeak servers and stuff like that. And after that long, I mean, literally you have like a minute solid of everyone screaming and jumping up and down of how happy they are. And just to have that feeling, and like that's just over pixels on the screen, there's no actually real value to that. And imagine now there's actually real value for accomplishing something that no one else in the world has done yet, and you guys are the first ones doing it, or we are the first ones doing it. So I would have to say, yeah, an MMORPG would be the game for me that I'd like to see. Some other kind of funner older games that would be interesting is, I don't like, maybe some of the like sim type building type games, a railroad type tycoon, maybe a Sim City type game, stuff like that might be fun too.
yeah, I think, or something like Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto, where you have actual, items that are NFTs, but you have areas of the city that are more safe, or that when you get killed, your stuff respawns. But then the areas where it's, you have a lot better loot and stuff is actually like you play for keeps, and if you get killed, then you have to start over. Stuff like that would be really interesting, I think.
Right.
And I've got a question for you. So with World of Warcraft, because I played World of Warcraft also when I was back in college. When you're talking about doing raids and everybody's working together solely for the sheer fun of it, do you think that people doing it, that when there's a monetary incentive, it's going to improve the experience, or do you think it's going to detract from the experience because people have motivations not just of having fun playing the game, but now people are doing it for money instead?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same way, because you still had that desire, like everybody wants to have that piece of loot. Now, whether it's just to be able to, look better or have a better ability within the game, that same desire is still there. Just now it has a monetary value to it. So I think as long as there's a fair, agreeable system up front before everybody starts playing, and a system that everybody agrees to, then I think it'll be fine. If you don't have a loot system in order, and then people start feeling like, well, this isn't fair. Like, why did he get that, $2,000 piece of loot and I didn't? I should have been my turn. I've been here longer or whatever. So it's got to be a fair system in place. I think that's going to be the key. And then I don't think it's going to be really, I think there'll be a difference. The difference is people will be able to actually spend more time doing it, especially if the rewards are good enough to actually, have a full-time living from it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really tricky also because the stakes are so much higher. Whereas, although I know gamers are also have very little patience for poorly balanced games as it is, but when you start to add money into the mix, if we're talking about a game like World of Warcraft, those kind of games are incredibly difficult to balance, and they take a lot of iterations to actually balance them. So then it's a question of how long can the company, like how long is their development runway before they actually need to go live with it. So that's an interesting question.
The economics of these games that are coming out in the future is going to be really important. The companies need to have economists on staff and be able to really have a good understanding of the economy and build it so it has a long-term vision in mind when they're building the game for the economy of it, for the online economy. I just wanted to also add, Josh, you and I are going to be doing probably a lot of content like this together. And I want you guys to definitely go out and take a look at Josh's channel there, DeFi Now, get familiar with his content. watch for stuff that's coming out on his channel, because a lot of the stuff that'll be out on his channel will be the same kind of stuff that we're doing. It's all going to be relevant, because it's all going to be educational. So anything that he puts out is going to help give you guys knowledge and information to help you grow within the blockchain, NFT metaverse space.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I do pay attention to what, all the comments and everything people are saying. So if you have questions about stuff, or if you want a specific tutorial on something, if I see that there's a lot of people that are interested in a specific game that is not a scam, then I'll definitely do content on it. And I also want to do my own live streams and do gameplay videos and things like that going forward. I do try to kind of minimize the hype and focus on the more educational side of things. So that's kind of, my focus on my channel.
Yeah, and we're going to try to do a lot of the same thing. It's going to be either educational or informational is kind of the stuff that we're going to want to focus on as well. So I think that's why we'll be able to co-op on a lot of things going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything? How long have we been going? Curious.
Yeah, I'm actually good. I did cover all my notes.
All right. Well, in that case, I think we'll go ahead and wind it down for tonight.
Yeah.
You guys make sure to, like Sam said, go to Josh's page, give him a subscribe, and keep following along because there's some good stuff ahead. So thanks so much, Josh, for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, same for here. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with your friends, guys. The more people we can get involved in the community, the better off everyone will be.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye. Night. Cool. Well, I think that other than the audio issues at the beginning, I think that went well. The discussion was good.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was it was also just like really good stuff to talk about. I think in the future it'd be good to do like kind of like prepare an AMA and say we're going to be talking to people, or this is the topic we're going to be discussing, and reach out to the community and say, like, send us in your questions, and then we can have some questions prepared ahead of time, and then we can also take questions in the chat. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I've got another call that I need to jump on. Load me up with any content that you guys want to do like this, anything else that's coming up. However often you guys are comfortable doing it.